Hi, this is Chuck Beck at Lazarus Recovery YouTube at the junction of faith and recovery. Um, this is in my series about change. Again, I said I tried to do it all in one piece because I was trying to expand on a lesson I did at CR, and it didn't work out. I had technical problems. It didn't want to process and load, so I'm breaking it into smaller chunks and see if I can solve my technical problems. And I also had technical problems with that one because you can't see it, but this stuff here, when I look at it, is green screen. Well, I lost the green screen. I had to do some stuff to compensate for that, and that didn't work out. And I had little speckly things on me when I did it. So it was the video wasn't of high quality either. So I'm breaking it into pieces, shorter pieces that'll process quick. So this is on a series in change, and basically they're stories that from my life that show something about change. This particular story I told was a story that really it's always been something that shows something about change. So basically, this is going to be about when I was in college, and my freshman year in college, I started caving because I was at Indiana University, and I was a geology major, and they had a spelunking club and a geology club, and I'd actually gone to Indiana because I was very interested in caves. I'd gone to Mammoth Cave once with my family, and I was always intrigued by it. Sort of proves that what you're intrigued by isn't necessarily what you're going to enjoy. But irrespective of that, I went caving, and this is one particular cave, and I'll tell you the story. And I don't know whether I can get pictures, but I can tell you where to see. I've seen the videos. YouTube wasn't around back when I did stuff. I mean, they didn't even have computers back when I went to college. I did a computer class and they did punch cards. So all you did was punch cards and do a little trick. That was computers. That was it. There wasn't anything. That's in I graduated in 68. And this was 64. So technology was different and everything. But you can find YouTube videos. I watched them last night, and I saw the crawl that I saw the places that I'm going to talk about. And there's actually pictures. I think you can find the pictures, of stuff. I found it on YouTube. You can look at the video what I'm talking about. It's changed a little bit, but the place you're going to be looking for on YouTube, just put Wayne's Cave, W-A-Y-N-E, Wayne's Cave, Indiana, Bloomington, Indiana. And there'll be a whole bunch of videos about going to Wayne's Cave. And you look it up. And what I'm going to talk about, it's changed a little bit, and I'll mention the things. But basically, I went to this cave, and I'll describe the trip, and I'll describe the thing that I'm really talking about change. Wayne's Cave is a in those days it was maybe a 5 or 6 hour, 7 hour jaunt. Not to get to it, but once you go into it, it's about a 6 or 7 hour thing when you're in there. And I'm going to describe the cave, and you can actually, if you go to YouTube, I saw some things. They actually have a cave map, and they found some extra passages that they didn't have when I was there. But I'll describe what I saw. So basically, this is about what it takes to change, what it's like for some changes. So You go in, and when on YouTube you'll see them clearing something. What they've done is they've concreted over the entrance, and they have a locked thing, and they open it up, and you drop down in. And it was sort of like that, but it was open back then, and it was just a chute. It was not bad. It was, maybe 10 or 15 feet drop, but there was a lot of stuff, and you could hold on to it, and you just basically worked your way down into a passageway. There was, you could stand up and move around it. And you didn't go more than, I seem to remember, 20 or 30 feet, not that far. It was a passageway that ran for a while, but the key thing was, off that passageway was a little, narrow passageway. And you immediately got down on your knees and you crawled. It was not a bad crawl. You were on your hands and knees, and there was maybe a couple inches above your back, and you scoochied along, and there was some width around on both sides and stuff like that. It wasn't too bad. As crawls go, it wasn't too bad. I was new at it, so I didn't really realize. But and that was about a half hour of that. It's like winding around and this and that, and it wasn't too bad. You're crawling, but that's. And then gradually it spread out, so it was wide. It wasn't like a box that you were crawling through. It was wide. And you said, okay, this is cool. And you crawl some more. Well, then what happened was that the ceiling and the floor sort of came together, so it's wide, but it's not very high. So before long, there's no hands and knees stuff. It's you're on your belly, but you got plenty of width out here, and it's about 2 feet, 1.5 feet, something like that, wide. So you're just doing this thing, and you're crawling and scooging along and everything. You say, this isn't that bad. And then you come to places where it dips a little bit, and there's water. It's wet, and you got to scoogee through the water. Maybe tip your head a little bit. And the water smells like it smells like piss. Because the water's coming from a sinkhole up above, and the sinkhole up above has cows running around it. So that's what you got. You got basically the runoff from a pasture down, and your head is halfway in this pasture water. Okay, that's okay, fine. So you go further, and what happens is the width part starts to come in. It starts to shrink. So pretty soon you got wall here and you got wall here, and it's low and you can't crawl, so you're just sort of hunching along. And you say, okay, this is a little tight. This is a little bit, I don't particularly like this. And then you come to a place, and there's this doggone column in the middle of this thing. There's a column, flowstone, down the middle. So your thing, all of a sudden you gotta take a detour and push yourself against one wall and scoogee around, and the ceiling's low, and you got your hat off here and a lamp, and you're pushing it along, and your head's tilted over, and you're pushing and shoving, and you don't have any, it's hard even to scrunch. That's getting tight. That's getting tight. And so that's what you do. And then it gets really tight, really, 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 really tight. There is nothing. Just sort of, you feel like you're a worm. It's like contracting and working your way, and you just barely get through. And then all of a sudden, boom, you sort of pop out into a fairly comfortable thing. It's a little canyon thing, and you pop out into that. And then you say, oh wow, this is great. And you get into the canyon thing, and everybody rests, and then you go off and you spend like 3 or 4 hours exploring. And it turns out these days they found another passage down the different way, and it opened into some great stuff. You see pictures. I never saw this stuff. They had flow stones, and they stalactites and stalagmites, and a whole bunch of really cool stuff. You know, it was an extension that they found, you know, well after I was there. You know, and we went there and we took a trip in big passageways and streams and everything like that. When you get done, you know, you've been in there 5 hours, and you start to head back, and you get to that passageway where you got to go through the crawl. And a crawl doesn't like go wide and go narrow. It's just simply, and there's actually a picture. There's a picture of it on one of the videos that I saw, and it's sort of the way I remember it. It's just like you crawl up, and then there's just this slot in the wall, and you got to stick yourself in that slot. There's no room. It's not like you get used to it. It's just like you're sticking yourself into a hole, and you're a cork and you're too big, and you're sticking yourself into this hole. And it's the transition from big and comfortable to this thing. And the point I want to make about change is there is no choice, because you know the only way out to the rest of your life is through that hole. And you don't want to go. This crawl is not something, unless it's something you don't want to go into. There's nobody on the face of this earth that wants to go through that. But it is the only way out. It is the only way out. And I can remember the almost desperation, okay, I got to get, because I just want to get out of here. I want to get out of here. And I stuck my head in that. And I don't know whether I went in there again. I'm trying to think whether I went to Wayne's Cave twice, a couple times. I might have gone a couple times. But it wasn't my favorite thing to do. I was more of a tourist cave guy. I wasn't like, some people like that stuff. I didn't like it. I liked to talk about it. I didn't like to do it. You know, some people like that tight stuff. I just didn't like it. But in order to get out, I wanted to get out. I really wanted to get out. So I had to go. And that's what you got to learn in recovery. There are some places and some things in change that you just do not want to do because they're completely unpleasant, but they are the only way out. And that crawl was the only way out of that place. And that's what it is with recovery. You know, sometimes, you know, the thing you got to do to get change is the only way out. And it takes a while, and you fiddle and fuss around, and then you find out this is the only way. Some people die trying to find another softer way out. Some people in recovery, some people in AA and NA, they try to find an easier, softer way out. And they don't find it, but they die before they realize they got to do what they got to do. The sooner you figure out you got to do what you got to do to get out, the more chance you have of surviving. And that's a lesson. Change doesn't happen. Sometimes change happens when you do what you don't want to do because you got to do what you got to do. You know, you don't wait for yourself to feel good about it. You do what you got to do. You know, recovery's not fun. You do what you got to do to stay alive. You know, Christian life is the same way. There are some things about it that just aren't pleasant, but you got to do what you got to do. Jesus said, "Take up your cross and follow me." That is ridiculous. That is utterly ridiculous, except for the fact that he's the guy that knows, and he's just telling you the truth. If you want to follow me, take up your cross and follow me. I don't like it. I avoid it. But I've found that that's true. You know, change doesn't happen if you avoid the tolls of change. You know, you got to pay the tolls to get over the road. Sometimes there's that crawl you got to go through. Sometimes there's that relationship that you have to heal, or you have to. There's sometimes it's a relationship you have to break. In other words, you know, sometimes a relationship is going to kill you, and you got to break it off. Sometimes a lot of things aren't good, but you have to be willing to break this stuff in order to get free. Change ain't change. That's what I put in the previous one. Jim Spence at the Bridge House said, change ain't change till it's changed. In other words, we can talk about change until we're blue in the face. But are willing to stick our head in that crawl to get out? That's the question. You know, are you willing to do what you got to do, or are you a three-stepper? Are you a three-stepper? If you run a step program in a church or someplace like that, and you work the steps, you have a crowd for step 1, step 2, step 3. As soon as you hit step 4, the numbers go down by 75%. You're willing to do what you got to do not to drink. That's what I learned. That's what I learned. So, this is a story about the Wayne's Cave crawl and about change. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and there's no real choice. In order to get out, you got to go through the crawl. You know, and it's unfair, and you're going to stay in that cave for the rest of your life and die there because you aren't willing to stick your head down and crawl through that crawl to get out. That's the way it is. This is Chuck at Lazarus Recovery YouTube. And the funny thing is that you got in, you can get out. It's all good. You just got to be willing to stick your head down. You just got to be willing to crawl on your belly, and you got to, you know, just try not to eat the water at the bottom of the thing. You got to try to keep your head above that. You got to try to get through, but you got to do what you got to do to get out. This is Chuck Peck, Lazarus Recovery YouTube, at the junction of faith and recovery.